speaking of things being overrun with with other entities,
Yeah.
let's talk about airport lounges,
Yeah, this
which
is
are
a
now
perfect
Yes.
overridden with
segue.
people. Too many,
Too
yeah,
many plebes joining
too
the
many.
exclusive
Too many
VIP
plebes.
experience. No,
Everyone's
but
a
really,
VIP, and then no
yeah.
one's a VIP.
Exactly. There was the viral New York Times article about the airport lounges losing their exclusivity,
Mhm.
written by a BuzzFeed writer in the opinion section. And people kind of, jumped on it because they're like, okay, first of all, champagne problems. And, number two, like, oh no, too many plebes joining, coming into your exclusive like VIP lounge. Um, but what I wanted to talk about here is the whole idea of what it means to sell exclusivity as an experience, when the bigger goal is to have as many people join as possible, right? Um, in order for you to make the money back of what you're selling, right? The airport lounges used to be, they were rare. They weren't as open to everybody, but they started wanting to open it up to more people because they wanted to make more money. And so they started, letting in the people who, either exclusively flew with that airline or joined through like the credit card.
Just to go back a second, by letting in more and more people, what we mean is like there are now so many ways to gain
Mhm,
access to these club
Mhm.
lounges. It's not just for first or business class travelers anymore.
mhm,
Now it's like if you have a certain credit card and you're willing to pay the annual fee, that's one way
mhm.
to get in. Or if
Mhm.
you somehow get like a priority pass membership, that gives you access to into these lounges.
I don't want to make it seem as if it's a problem allowing more people in. It's just what happens to like the sentiment that gets created by the people who were originally, part of the exclusive club that are now allowing so many more people that either they are being excluded or, as was written in this article, their experience of like the exclusivity has gone down, right? They're providing food that's not as great as it used to be, or like, there are more rules. Now we're going through a period where they're starting to make them more exclusive, right? They're moving the goalpost of who's allowed in, whether that's putting in higher fees or having a new ultra premium tier of like, you have to be flying a certain amount and it's not just
Mhm.
the regular level that you were at before. They're just making it more difficult for everybody. The people that were included in the first round get annoyed or pissed off at the companies because they're like, well, what changed? And the main problem that changed is that now there's so many more people that it's kind of diminishing the value for everybody. And so a couple things here for companies that are, trying to go this route, which is creating, a premium offering of like their product, is that you're going to have to decide at some point, like, are you just going to make things more expensive in order to exclude people? Or are you going to try to like raise, the bar for like,
Mhm.
everything, right? Like, are you still using that exclusivity to be a lure, or are you just being performative with it, which is kind of what's happening with airline lounges or these airline lounges. As was mentioned in the article, there are now new airport lounges that cater directly to the more affluent. There's like different levels to this thing,
Yeah,
right?
I think these are all international ones
Right,
though,
right, right,
in
Yeah.
the US.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and so, one of the things here that I wanted to call out was that if you're selling it as an experience, at some point that's going to start degrading and you might lose what makes it special. And so I want to call out a
Mhm.
few of the brands that are doing it right. And I think that's mostly what we're seeing in fashion, where you have like brands like Hermes and Rolex, where it's like they've created levels to like their, to how exclusive, some of their products are. So they have, the ones that they, like their Hermes Birkin bag that has those levels of exclusivity where it's like, the ones that are for like the, celebrities and for
Mhm.
like the real affluent. And that kind of, goes down a little bit more to where, people that might not be able to afford it, but are willing to pay the amount that they have to, still have to jump through like more hoops in order to
Mhm.
get it. And so that like adds to the allure of like what they are buying. And then you have accessible products. They're still adding that exclusivity that people are looking for and want. So you kind of have to trade off how many things you're going to be selling in order to like allow more people in to the more accessible part of your brand. We're also seeing this whole idea of like perceived scarcity. Also, we're seeing in like, with like the Birkin bags, right? Where it's like they only create a set amount of like specific specific bags so that there is that scarcity already there. I've seen people ask like, well, why don't they just create more? Or it's like, because it would diminish what the entire brand is selling, right? So they'll create special like one-offs of like I've seen like the crocodile, leather
Mm-hmm.
bag, right? You have the ones that only are in specific colors. And so they'll do that in order to sell that more, exclusive handbag that isn't available, to everybody else. But then they'll have the ones that are in like colors that are more common
Yeah.
for
I've also
people.
seen like stores or like resellers like buy them in bulk and then sell them off because like not everybody will go through the hoops and like build that buying history with Hermes to finally get a Birkin offered to them and then it's not even the color that they want. And there's resellers, I forget the name, but it's a famous one on TikTok. It's like a shop in London that like stocks every kind of Birkin imaginable. So that's another thing that I'm also starting to see specifically related to Hermes, where
Mhm.
people don't want to jump through those hoops or like
Mhm.
spend thousands and thousands to get that faded call from a sales associate like you're ready for a Birkin, we have one to offer to you, and they're just going to these resellers and like purchasing them there, which is like interesting to see how scarcity exists. And then
Mhm.
there's also all these solutions around it where people rather not wait, similar to airport lounges too, right? Like there's the credit cards and the miles that get, or like business class things that get you access, or there's like quicker ways to get it too. Like people sell day passes now, or
Mhm.
even like 3 hour passes or 4 hour passes. So you can still get in and like get that taste for a few hours and then leave and lead your regular life. But I really like the point you brought up earlier, Sonia, where it's like not necessarily that the bar of the service or the quality is going up. Like it reminds me of airlines in general, where economy ticket prices have skyrocketed
Mhm.
so much, but the service is the same. The seats have only gotten smaller, the food has only gotten shittier, and it's given the rise to premium economy,
Yeah.
which is which is even more expensive, but people rather do that. And the other metaphor or the other example is like Sephora's tiers, like the
Mm.
Rogue, the VIB. There's like three tiers there too. And I see more and more of this tiered system
Yeah.
coming into place, like not just in airlines or like at Sephora, but like everywhere, which is so interesting to see. And it doesn't make you feel bad. Like initially, yeah, you'd be like, oh my God, I can't get this because I'm VIP. And I was like, oh, I'm just at level one and I can get there when I'm at level three or whatever. But it's very interesting to see how many brands are playing into this tiered system and it's actually working. Maybe not
Yeah.
for lounges anymore, but
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's different for airport lounge or things that are a physical space that there's only so many, people that can
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, where it
Um,
actually is scarce.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
But I have seen those examples too. And I think what works there is, where you're creating the story behind the different levels, right? And then you're making each of those levels feel like they're being included in their level because like, hey, these are other people that are also like you. So
Hmm.
I like that where it's like you're putting the storytelling behind it and you're explaining why there are the different tiers. And I think people understand like, yeah, you're not spending this amount, but you wouldn't be either because you're just not at that level, and that's fine. You can also be
Hmm.
included in this way. And I think in trying to create those levels, they're making it work a little bit better for them. One of the examples that I wanted to bring up of companies that didn't do it well is Clubhouse, because
Mm.
they kind of had their original like 150 people that they invited onto the platform, and then kind of slowly were bringing people in that were all related to like the initial group that they had invited. But at some point they started getting the oh, you should be more inclusive, you're not bringing in enough people that aren't in tech or that are in different industries and fields. And then they got that Andreessen Horowitz money, and they kind of opened the floodgates a little too quickly, in my opinion. And so you saw the original users just kind of jump off the platform just because
Mhm.
they're like, well, it doesn't feel the same anymore, and it doesn't like feel exclusive, and it doesn't, have that like community feel of what like the original intent had been. Um, and one thing I feel that they could have done is like, if you are bringing in people from the different industries, keep them, a little more segregated so that they all kind of know each other and are still within the same space, and they don't feel as if they're being thrown into like the wild with like not knowing anybody, not being like introduced by anybody, because having that like community like from the beginning is a way that you make people feel included. One of the original ways that Clubhouse did really well with that was that you had to be invited by somebody, and then that
Mhm.
person was known as like, you were invited by this other person, right? So you always had like that connection. But when they started like, making the ties a little looser by wanting to invite more people, that kind of went away. And so like you didn't have that person there to introduce you to all these other people that like, were in your community and would make you feel included. And it's kind of like the way that we think about when you are socializing, right? Like having that person that's like helping you like network and like meet new people is always going to be far easier than just, throwing everybody into a room and being like, well, introduce yourselves. And I think
Mm.
that ended up like, hindering their ability to continue growing, because like nobody felt like putting in that extra work anymore,
That's
you
super
know?
interesting. That actually makes me wonder if, in hindsight, if Clubhouse would have benefited from a sort of tiered system that
Yeah.
enabled education about the platform.
Yeah.
Because when you were new to Clubhouse, you probably just thought like, oh, it's an audio social network thing. Okay, I don't really understand this, right? Like because
Mhm.
nobody would just create. I mean, you could, right? But nobody would create a Clubhouse account and then immediately just be like, okay, I'm going to start a room now.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
normal behavior is, oh, I'm going to poke around a little bit. I'm going to
Mhm.
jump
Mhm.
into rooms and listen. And oh, they can't hear me, right? Or I don't know, right? Like, I
Mhm.
think it would have been interesting if they had this tiered system where you kind of like, if you kind of accrue points based on
Mhm.
your behavior. So
Mhm.
maybe it's like you can join any room, whatever, right? And then when you join the room, maybe it becomes clear, like, hey, people can't hear you. You can listen. Um, and if you accrue more time or go into more rooms, then maybe it's like then you can start dropping reactions,
Yeah.
or then you can
Mhm.
start like eventually over time. And I don't know how this would work, right? I'm just making this up, but eventually over time, maybe you kind of earn that right to create your own room,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
Yeah.
along that way, it's like you do certain things that indicate your knowledge of the platform, where it's like where by the time you're able to create your own room, then maybe by that point it's like, no, this user has at least listened to like 5 different rooms. They know how to drop reactions. They seem
Mhm.
into this. Like, okay, this person probably knows what they're doing. Like, I wonder
This,
if that would have been better for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
One way to also keep out the bots, like making
Mhm.
That
these,
too.
it's like
Yeah.
a little captcha test, but I like that idea so much. It's also like building credibility. So you're not just out here adding noise, but
Yeah.
you
I
are
mean, I
only
think that's one
using
of
it
the
in,
reason why Reddit is kind of works as its own like space, right? Where it's like people have
yes.
to build up their profiles and their points. You can't go in there and start selling to people. People can downvote you, people can upvote you, and then that's how you kind of like build up your profile there. So that's a yeah, great idea. I wonder if, going forward, like a new social media. I mean, I don't it's hard to say, oh, a new social media account could do all this, right? But
Yeah.
it's hard to get people to, go on to like new things, right? So ideally, it would be a Twitter or like Facebook having to, take this on and like figure out like, are these like real people? Because they want that, for their current users, like actual users and not like bots, right? One thing I
Yeah.
had that just remind me of is we're seeing Spotify and then some other company, I forget. So you have to upload an ID to prove that like you're a human. And I'm of two like minds on that, right? Like one, I'm just like, it's fucking Spotify. Who cares? Like if it's a
Yeah.
real human, you know? But on the flip side, it's like, okay, maybe Spotify is getting like bogged down by bots creating AI music that like
Yes.
nobody is listening to. And
Like,
so they have to cut that down, you know?
Yeah, or maybe it
and
inflates
then
the streams on
the
something, and they're
streams.
like,
Right.
"No, we actually want to know how many people listen to this song."
Yes,
Yeah,
like remember
exactly.
Drake like suing Kendrick Lamar, being like the streams on his song are fake,
Oh,
right? Like I
right. Right. No,
understand, like
that's true.
again,
Exactly.
champagne
Hmm.
problems or champagne poppy problems, but for real, like it's true, it could happen. So I get it why they might want to do it, but I
Hmm.
also understand like you're just making it harder for users to adopt your product if you're making all of these hoops that they have to jump through,
That's
especially if it
true.
involves like uploading an ID.
Right.
Like nobody wants to put like their ID like that on an app or on the internet because of everything that else goes down. Like if there's a data breach, like there
I
goes
mean,
my
we
government
literally
ID.
just saw the T app that like had users update, IDs to prove that they're women, have all their data spilled, including their IDs with like their addresses on there. So like, forgive me if I don't trust a tech company. And to be fair, fine, that's not
Absolutely.
Yeah.
like the greatest example because like it was some guy who like vibe coded it and didn't realize that you have to like close off the like security aspect to your product, but that was a data breach. And we've seen data breaches from large tech companies of all our other personal information. So, like, there isn't that inherent trust that if I do upload something that's proprietary information about me, that it'll be
Hmm.
kept safe from,
Oh, for
some sort of
sure.
data breach.
Mhm.
If
Oh,
any app asks me for an ID, like immediately I don't need that feature. I'm good.
yeah. Although I do wonder for Spotify if like it if there are if like if they're directly incentivized to do this because if bots are streaming music, like the data is still being transferred. Like it's still a lot of data for them to
Mhm.
handle. And I wonder if the
Mm,
costs offset it in such that like it's too expensive for them to
Mhm.
keep managing the platform if there are too many bots on it. But
hmm.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I hope so. Cause it's like maybe that means that like the rest of the tech companies will have to sort out the bot issue because
Yeah,
they have to pay. It's too expensive to keep them on there.
yeah, bring back the humans. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be better for everybody, right? I miss like the old Facebook, my friends posting, pictures and like, life updates. Now it just seems like it's a bunch of memes, which I get from Twitter. I don't need that from Facebook. Facebook is kind of like unusable for me now.
yeah.
No, I agree. I miss that too. Every app I'm on, just like you can do two scrolls and then there's an ad, and it's
Mhm.
just a turn off. And then everything is about like someone selling you something, even if it's just like a creator you follow. I get it. I love that everyone's getting their bag. I'm all for it. But I also miss like just regular content and people sharing their thoughts. And I think that's kind of why I miss the old Twitter so much, because
Mhm.
it wasn't from, not everybody was selling on there, people were writing their shower thoughts. It was so normal and like so like real, like how you would talk like maybe in the classroom before the teacher gets in. Like that was the vibe for me. And I really, really miss that. I don't see that in current apps. And yeah, with like creators being forced to like partner with brands to make their money because views are down and bots are taking over, like it's a bit of a sad dystopian state in the internet, and the dead internet theory feels more and more real every day, where it's just bots engaging with bots. And at
Yeah.
what point, or like, will we ever stop that? Or have we just like become complete sellouts and we're like, well, this is it. We are AI first. Because it's so interesting to me, all of these companies that want to be AI first or are for replacing humans with technology at the same time are producing content that their users are not liking.
Mhm.
Because I've seen the conversations where inside they're like, we need to be more relatable and we need to be more authentic and we need to be more human. But then you also want to be AI first. And I feel like those two things can't be at a 50-50. So one of them has to be dominating the other, which is a very interesting kind of observation from my end, where I'm like, you can be relatable, but you also cannot have like AI write that for you. You have to pick a side.